Interviews and insights with the biggest names in Canadian baseball. This is the CBN Podcast.
Welcome back, baseball fans, to the latest episode of the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. Jackson, we have a familiar face to the show, and Tyler Black joining us again today.
Yeah, obviously spoke with Tyler Black a long time ago now, feels like certainly. Looking forward to catching up with Tyler. In fact, I think he was one of our first episodes that we did on this new season, this new revamped version of the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. So yeah, looking to kind of check back in and doing a follow-up for the first time, Matt.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was our first episode. I went back and looked, and it was 2021, I believe. So going on 2 years. It was when he first got drafted. It was around this time as well. But a lot has changed for this young man, and he's made his way through the Milwaukee Brewers ranks all the way to AAA, obviously, so one step away. So we're going to cover all of that and more in this episode. All right, we're thrilled to have back on the Canadian Baseball Network podcast, Milwaukee Brewers prospect, Tyler Black. Tyler, how's it going?
Good, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. So I don't know if you know this or not, but you were actually the first guest that we had on this podcast. And that was, I don't know if you remember, but it was back when you first got drafted.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, so I think that was, 2021? So it's been a couple of years. A lot's changed for you for the better. But first, before we get to the serious stuff, I got to ask you, you're in Nashville right now. You're playing for the AAA Nashville Sounds. That's my favorite city. What's your favorite part about being in the Music City?
Oh, dude, I absolutely love it. Honestly, playing there, the best thing I'd probably say is the fans. Every weekend we get pretty much a sellout. So, yeah, man, every weekend it's sold out, fun to come to the ballpark. So,
are you a country music fan?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite artist?
Morgan Wallen for sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know a few people that's his favorite, their favorite artist. So good choice there. But so getting back to obviously baseball, that's what we want to talk about. 2021, you were the 33rd overall pick by the Brewers. Now you're in AAA. Kind of looking over the last few years, take me through what it's been like, and are you surprised at yourself at how fast you've moved through the system?
Honestly, man, not really. It's just been a lot of ups and downs during that time, honestly. I had a kind of slow start right after the draft and kind of learned a lot in the 20 games I played. And then I went into the next season and had a pretty good summer until I got hurt. Played, I think, 60 games and fractured my scapula playing center field, diving for a ball. So that ended my season. Then I went out to the fall league and really learned a lot there and hurt my thumb and was out for the rest of the fall. Yeah, man, it was a lot of ups and downs until this year. Really, one of my main goals was to just be healthy the full season, and I did that. And
fractured your scapula. That sounds incredibly painful.
Yeah, no, it was not fun. When I went to the hospital too, they kind of didn't really know like the protocol. They said they only saw it from car accidents, so. Yeah, it was a little different for sure.
Do you still deal with the lingering effects from that, or is that like, do you still feel that, or you're basically back to 100% now?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% fully. Honestly, it was probably the best case scenario in that type of injury. I've dealt with a shoulder injury before, and when it first happened, I thought I like dislocated it, and there's just so much that can go wrong when you dislocate your shoulder with the labrum and the rotator cuff. It's probably the best case scenario. So I haven't had any issues with it. And yeah, it was kind of a simple rehab of just letting it rest. So
let's talk about something a little bit more positive than that. So when you played obviously at Wright State, so what was the biggest difference for you going from the college game now that you've kind of really established yourself as a professional? What's the biggest difference between the college game and the professional game?
Just say playing every day. Obviously there's a lot that goes into that. Keeping your body in shape and healthy. And yeah, man, college you get 4 games a week, 3 on the weekend, 1 midweek usually. Pro ball's an everyday thing, man. You got to come to the park and find it every day. So
yeah, you mentioned, playing every day and staying healthy. And obviously you've dealt with a few injuries already in your young career. But what is the key? And then this year you played a full campaign. So what's the key to staying healthy, playing every day? Do you have a certain routine that you go through?
Yeah, routines are huge. Building up your body in the off season correctly is huge. I realized in college there's a difference between kind of getting as strong as possible and as baseball strong as possible. At the end of the day, you're only as effective as you can be if you're on the field. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how strong, how fast you are. So yeah, man, just staying mobile, that's the biggest thing, I'd say.
I guess it's true what they say that the best ability is availability.
Yeah, 100%.
So you've been promoted multiple times through the system already in your young career. What's the biggest challenges and adjustments you have to make, whether it's, housing, just take us through how that all works.
Yeah, actually, my promotion in Nashville was really my first promotion since going from the complex to low A, like in the middle of the season. So I was still kind of fairly new to it. And yeah, man, it's different. You're just, you're in one city for the whole year. And then I got the call on like a early August morning at like 8:30 a.m. and we had a game at 4 o'clock that day in Pensacola. So I had to kind of gather up my things, go back to Biloxi, and then drive over to Nashville for the Sunday game. And yeah, man, it's just a quick turnaround. Obviously, new clubhouse, new city, kind of everything new you're kind of getting acclimated to. So
How much does the team? I know obviously when you watch the big league, you see guys get traded and up and down, but how much does the minor league system get supported in making those transitions from level to level?
yeah, I mean, it's definitely cool. Like we had Churio come up for the last week there, and your team can really change just from week to week based on the guys that come up. Clubhouses are always kind of churning, especially in the minor league. So especially in AAA, I feel like, yeah, man, it was awesome. I had a great group of guys there in Nashville and a great coaching staff as well.
So you're the Brewers' number 4 prospect. You're in AAA. You're extremely close to the big leagues. Do you think about that? Is that something that you try to keep out of your mind? But I'm assuming that has to cross your mind just how close you are to realizing your dream.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially now the season's done. But honestly, at the same time, when you're in the season, you're just kind of locked in, and I just try to stay moment to moment. I think that's been a big thing for me, just taking it one pitch at a time, especially since we're playing so much, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, of course. So you just told us before we hopped on air that you're flying to Milwaukee to accept an award as the Brewers minor league player of the year. How did you find that out, and kind of what was your reaction when you were told that?
yeah, my manager pulled me in a couple days before the season ended and, told me. And yeah, it's definitely really cool for me just because I was injured a lot last year. So it's kind of my goal, man, just to play. My goal is just to play as many games as possible this year, and was lucky enough to put up some good numbers. So it was really cool for sure, and a great honor, no doubt. A lot of good players in our system. So
Yeah, so Milwaukee just clinched a playoff spot. So knowing that you're their minor league player of the year and they're going to honor you with that, do you feel like you're ready to make the jump to the big leagues?
oh yeah, 100%. I definitely feel like I can contribute. Whenever that time is, I just got to stay patient and stay ready.
You obviously you've stolen a lot of bases in your career. Just looking it up now, you had 55, I think, this year between Double A and Triple A. Explain a little bit about how the new rules that we're seeing now in the big leagues that have been in the minor leagues the last few years. How has that changed compared to college when you used to steal bases to now with the bigger bases, the pickoffs, all that sort of stuff? How have you adjusted to that, and has that helped your game?
Yeah, definitely. I just think that was actually one of my goals in the off season, to kind of steal some more bags, just because I do have some speed, but I've never really been a huge stolen base threat until this year, I feel like. And yeah, man, just with the pitch clock and the bigger bags and the pickoff rule, like there's no reason someone with speed shouldn't be putting up big stolen base numbers, you know what I mean? So I think it's definitely a big part of the game now. The game's definitely going in that direction with speed, being more valued on the base pass. So yeah, it was definitely a point of emphasis for me. coming
It's
into
interesting.
this year.
It's interesting that you say that wasn't necessarily a big part of your game until this year, and then you steal 55 bases. Like that's a lot of bases. So how did you kind of make that adjustment to work that into your game?
Honestly, it was a combination of a lot of things. I went to Double A Biloxi, started there, and my manager Mike Guerrero was really liked to steal bags, and he just tried to instill confidence in us to just go. And you're going to get thrown out. It doesn't matter. The only way to kind of get better and learn is to just keep going. So, yeah, man, I'd get thrown out a bunch, but I just continued to keep the confidence in stealing bags. And we had a bunch of guys with I think like 30 stolen bases. So I'm going to continue to do that in my career.
We've talked about a little bit about how close you are. How do you keep yourself focused, kind of day to day and kind of staying where your feet are when you're this far along in the system? You've moved really quickly. You're a top prospect. You're a top pick. How do you kind of stay in the moment and not get too far ahead of yourself?
I think it's just focusing on that. You know what I mean? I would say it's almost easier. Baseball's almost easier to do that just because you're playing every day and just truly taking it one pitch at a time. So I just tried to kind of focus on that this whole year.
Fall training has arrived, and the Baseball Zone has you covered. They offer hitting, fielding, and pitching clinics for all ages. Now, if you want to add more technology to your training, try out their specialized advanced clinics. And if you want smaller instruction, their semi-private clinics might be what you're looking for. Well, TBZ has something for everyone. Check out their website at thebaseballzone.ca or go give them a visit at 1081 Breivik Place, Mississauga, Ontario, near the 401 and Dixie Road exit. Now back to the interview.
Well, I want to talk about expectations in a minute, but back to the rule changes. What are your thoughts on the rule changes? You play college baseball. This wasn't a thing. It's just a thing in Major League Baseball, the bigger bases, all that stuff this year. What are your overall impressions of it, and do you like it?
Oh yeah, I love it. I think the pitch clock's been huge. And I definitely think, the game's kind of starting to go back to where it used to be a little bit, in terms of contact guys and speed guys. So yeah, man, I think definitely it's going to encourage more balls in play, which is going to help the game, no doubt. So yeah, I'm excited.
So you played 123 games this year. I'm assuming that's probably the most in your career that I can see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does your off season look like? What's the next few weeks look like? And then looking further into the winter, how does that play out for you?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to take some time here, just to kind of rest my body and, hang out with my family, kind of chill out a little bit. And then I'd say end of October, kind of start getting into it again, start swinging. I'll probably be working out the whole time, but yeah, start swinging early or late October and probably get down to Arizona early spring, get ready for spring training.
So for listeners that don't necessarily know, how much do the Brewers lay out your off-season plans and your workouts, and when you get going, when you take some time off? How much of a say do they have in that?
Yeah, I mean, really, they just care about kind of doing what you need to do to get better in the off season. It doesn't matter how you do it; it's kind of really up to you, which is what I like. They check in on you a little bit over the off season, but it's kind of hands off, which is what I like for sure.
Will this off season look different for you compared to other off seasons, given the number of games, given where you are in your career, that sort of thing? Will you kind of keep a similar routine to previous years?
I'll probably keep it similar. Definitely gonna take some time, which I didn't get to do last year because I was rehabbing. So yeah, gonna take some time and kind of get away from the field for a little bit, and then yeah, just get back to my routine, get back to a regular off season for sure.
So I want to talk a little bit about the Brewers specifically and their system. What impresses you about their system and how they develop players?
I just say like we got a lot of good players, not only position wise, pitching wise, and a lot of similar type players. I will say a lot of guys who are really good athletes who, I think they're really focusing on putting the ball in play and just kind of winning baseball. You know what I mean? And I think that's a huge thing. It goes all the way through our farm system. I think I saw a stat where we're kind of, I think we're like a top five farm system in wins, in winning percentage. And I think that goes a long way when you're kind of making the jump, man. Because the name of the game is winning, and doesn't matter how fast you run, how hard you throw. You got to win baseball games. So I think that stat kind of tells it all at the end of
That
the day.
that's interesting because I was watching the Jays play the Rays yesterday, and they talked a lot about that, about the Rays system and how they develop winners. How important is that? Because obviously the minor league system is about developing skill and players, but how important is developing? Kind of speak a little bit more about how important that is to develop winners, so that when you make the jump to the big leagues, hopefully next season, that you're just ready to take off running and you know the expectation when you get there.
Yeah, man, winning. We play this game to win, and at the end of the day, it's kind of funny. Usually, the most winningest organizations in baseball have really good farm systems too, or really winning farm systems. I've noticed, and yeah, it's like I said, like the way you do all things is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So, just from the bottom up, man, like since the start, I've been there in spring training. They do it right. It's just a focus on winning. I think that's the biggest thing, because really nothing else matters at the end of the day.
I always have a list of questions when I'm doing one of these podcasts, but it always goes off the rails. So I kind of want to jump back because a lot of high school development is based around player development. Do you think that there should be more of a focus on winning in high school than there currently is, having played for the Toronto Mets, or do you think the current system is kind of where it should be as far as development goes?
I think it's good, but I definitely think there could be more of a focus on it, and it's really hard kind of identifying that. I feel like in high school because it's so early, and a lot of times it's just tough being in these leagues where you're not playing a whole ton of games. But I can tell you, like some of these high school games down here, I've talked to my teammates. They just like the intensity in Texas, Florida high school games is just crazy. So I think it's just like I said, kind of focusing on winning, man. And that's the biggest thing. And I know there's some rivalries with Ontario teams, and that's definitely going to help that landscape, I feel like. But yeah, just creating a competitive environment is huge, and I think honestly Ontario does a great job of that in Canada. So
Yeah, no, you just mentioned the minor league system and how important winning is to the Brewers system, and I just thought I'd ask that question because sometimes that's a debate up here, and you know that full well. But
yeah,
so going into spring training, you mentioned you'll probably head down to Arizona a little bit early. What's your goal heading into spring training? I'm assuming you'll be in big league spring training at least for a little bit. So what are your kind of your expectations when you get down there?
yeah, man, just to be healthy, going feeling good, and I just want to be where kind of get to where I need to be body wise, physically, mentally, and just go in there feeling good, man, and just let the cards play out. I'm just gonna go play hard and see where it takes me. But yeah, man, just kind of getting my body right is the biggest thing for sure right now, just because it's been a long season.
What are you going to work on it that you think you need to make that kind of final jump to the big leagues?
I think there's a number of things. I played a lot of games at third base this year, and really made some strides over there. Feel really good. So just coming in, feeling good with my arm, feeling good with my body, moving well is going to be big. And then yeah, man, just improving some things with my approach I found that worked for me and what didn't, and just continuing to improve on that. So yeah, it's gonna be a big off season for sure. And I'm just excited for the spring.
Tyler, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you. You're the only guest that I've interviewed twice now. So, we'll obviously be following your career and hopefully one that lands in the big league sooner than later. But we really appreciate you taking the time today.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I love talking to Tyler Black, Jackson. The confidence, the calmness, just the way he approaches the game, the way he plays the game. It's designed perfectly, I think, for this kind of new era of baseball that's been unveiled this year.
Yeah, sounded really even keel. Sounded like he was just kicking back, enjoying what is, obviously reflecting on what was a fantastic season for him. And, I think he taught, you could just hear the competitiveness. Obviously the first time we talked to him, we learned a lot about that, but yeah, to see the growth, I think has been interesting too. And just not just in terms of his numbers, but, the way he talks about the game, the way he talks about winning and just, you can hear the competitiveness, but how motivated he is, right? This offseason, improving arm strength, making sure he's in good shape. And of course, Matt, he thinks he's big league ready. That's for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, I asked him that. He said, I think I'm ready to contribute. And I think he's proven that throughout his minor league career. Two things that stood out to me, though. The stolen bases. He said that wasn't really a huge part of his game previously. He stole some bases, don't get me wrong, but he said he really put an emphasis on that. And he stole 55 this year. That's not, he's not chipping in 10 to 15. He went out and stole 55 bases. Like that's a base stealer. And with the new age of the game, and he talks about how he likes the rule changes, that's going to play anywhere. That sort of base running ability. And then the other thing he talked about was winning in the minor leagues and how important that is. It's interesting, there's so much debate on player development versus winning, and how important and how to balance that. Obviously, the minor leagues and high school baseball in Canada and college is about developing players, but it's also about winning. And you have to have that competitiveness to get to the next level. And I think he has that. And it's just interesting how a big league organization puts a lot of emphasis on winning through the minors. You see it with organizations. You see it with the Rays. You see it with St. Louis. And plenty of organizations focus on that winning culture so that when they make the jump to the big leagues, those players, they know the expectation, they fit right in, and they go off to a flying start.
You see it all around baseball, but it's so true. And I think that what it does too, along with, yes, teaching players how to win and what the standard is, these players win together. You know what I mean? It's also like a bonding moment as well between them, coaches as well. And you remember how that feels and how it felt. And I think that too is a sort of like a self-motivating thing. You know what I mean? You want to get back to that, obviously on a bigger scale. But I think you could tell even just the way he talked about it, it's like a source of pride as well, right? You want to serve that, like being in the Brewers system means something. Being a winning team in the Brewers system means something. I think that matters. And I think that that's a really good way that he put it. If you're, for example, if you're a Jays fan, you'll recall how they talk about all the time how Schneider won with a lot of these guys in the minors as well, right? And how that connected these guys. I think there's a fierce debate for sure, right? About how much to tip the scale in one direction or another between development and winning. Ideally, you do both, but I guess that's the line you toe in baseball development. And we know where Tyler stands on it.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, he made that blatantly obvious. But you were talking another thing about him. You were talking before we got on about how he's played second base, third base, and center field.
Yeah.
So he's playing a prime defensive position in the outfield, along with playing a corner infield spot and second base. I think of a Jays comparison, you kind of look at a Whit Merrifield. They can play all over the diamond. Those types of guys are becoming more and more valuable as the game evolves into the way it is now.
Just talking about kind of like his sort of like batting profile, right? But I think too, like nowadays, Matt, not just with like the rule changes and stuff, but just in general, the way that we look at batting profiles, I think is so much different too. You talk about Merrifield, you can throw Kevin Biggio in there as well. He plays everywhere. Although Biggio ain't playing center field. Like to me, that's, I think, really impressive. The fact he can play a premium position out there while also playing third base and second base. I think it speaks to his work ethic clearly, and his unique skill set, clearly something that the Brewers have, continued to develop with him, but obviously something they saw within him as well. It's really impressive. And I think will bode him well in the future as he continues his ascent to the bigs.
And that's definitely strategic on the Brewers organization. They want him obviously to be a guy that can play all over. When you have a guy on your roster that can play three positions, it's almost like having a couple guys, and he can hit and he can run. He's got all the tools that in the making of being a big leaguer and a big leaguer very soon. So it's going to be very interesting to watch his career develop.
And the bat to go along with that, right? With the defensive versatility and the speed. Huge offseason obviously for him, and the way he talked about it sounded very calm, knew what he needed to do. He talked about how the Brewers kind of just let him do his thing, and he likes that. And I think that speaks a little bit to maybe how self-motivated he is as well.
I feel like the Brewers don't have to worry about what Tyler Black's doing in the offseason. He's going to be doing the right things. And Jackson, I think we may just talk to the newest, one of the newest big leaguers on this podcast. I don't think it's going to be long. I think next year is certainly within the realm of possibility.
When we talk about sort of the Canadians, up and coming Canadians in baseball, I think that when you talk about, some of the young Canadians, especially some of the prospects, Tyler Black's name sometimes does get forgotten a little bit among some of the other names, especially among some Jays prospects and maybe some flashier names who played at the World Baseball Classic and whatnot. But Black is certainly a guy you got to keep an eye on here for next season, but especially for beyond as well.
Yeah, and again, just thank him for taking the time. Two times in our short history that he's been on. It's kind of cool to see him, when he first gets drafted and now in AAA, a few steps away. Maybe when he makes that jump to the big leagues, he'll hop back on for us and we can get the big league perspective from Tyler Black. For now, thank you for listening, and we appreciate all the people that listen to this podcast. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Until next time, talk soon.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out Canadian Baseball Network for extensive and comprehensive coverage of the latest in Canadian baseball. And The Baseball Zone, Canada's leading instructional baseball academy and training home to thousands of MLB pro, college, and youth baseball players.